So once again, good afternoon and welcome to your class in Outside 22. So our next topic is cellular respiration. Last time we discussed about photosynthesis, and we've known that the products of photosynthesis, which are glucose, and the different mechanisms and different variation of photosynthesis to produce glucose, such as happening in C3, C4, and gum plants. So now we're going to make use of the products of photosynthesis through cellular respiration. So what is cellular respiration? It is a catabolic, exergonic, oxygen requiring process that uses energy extracted from the macromolecules or glucose to produce energy, ATP, and water. So this is just the invert formula of photosynthesis, wherein we make use of the glucose C6H12O6 and oxygen to produce carbon dioxide and water with the release of energy or ATP. So what is transpiration? It is the evaporation of water in the leaves or blood parts. And in what kinds of organism does cellular respiration takes place? So this is just to elaborate further. Respiration is so different from transpiration. So again, plants and animals, plants are autotrophs, which are self-producers, and animals are heterotrophs, which are the consumers of plants. So in the respiration takes place in the mitochondria. It's in the organelle where cellular respiration takes place. As these are the different parts of the mitochondria: the cristae, the matrix, the inner and outer membrane, and so on. So again, the redox reaction is the transfer of one or more electrons from one reactant to another through two types, oxidation and reduction. In the oxidation reaction, the loss of electrons from a substance or the gain of oxygen. As you can see here, with the release of ATP, oxidation occur with losing oxygen. Loss of electrons or gaining oxidation or gaining oxygen, and with the loss of electrons. While reduction reaction are the gain of electrons with the loss of oxygen to produce ATP. So again, photosynthesis and respiration has the reduction reaction, oxidation reduction reaction. So how does the cellular break down glucose during respiration? So there are four main parts. Remember that in photosynthesis, there were two types or two processes or parts also, and that is the light-dependent reaction and the light-independent reaction known as the Calvin cycle or the C3. So in respiration as well, we have glycolysis or the splitting of sugar in the cytosol outside the mitochondria, and the second phase is known as the grooming phase or the migration from cytosol to matrix, or the third part is the Krebs cycle or the citric acid cycle inside the mitochondria matrix. And the last part is the electron transport chain, ETC, and oxidative phosphorylation called chemiosmosis in the inner mitochondrial membrane. So let's start with the glycolysis. So in this topic, in this video, we only have to discuss the four main parts of respiration, starting with glycolysis, which occur in cytosol just outside the mitochondria. There are two phases. We have the, which includes 10 steps. We have energy investment phase, and it's during this first 5 steps wherein preparatory phase occurs. And next is the energy yielding phase, wherein the second 5 steps occur for the energy payoff phase. So this is the energy investment phase wherein the glucose is converted to G3P or glyceraldehyde phosphate and with a 2 to 3 carbon product at the expense of 2 ATP. So under glycolysis again is the energy yielding phase wherein the GAP G3P is converted to pyruvate with the 2 to 3 carbon product again at the expense of 4 ATP and 2 NADPH. And the total net yield during glycolysis is the 3 carbon pyruvate with the expense of 2 ATP and 2 NADPH. And during the substrate level phosphorylation, ATP is formed when an enzyme transfers the phosphate group from a substrate to ADPs. And this is shown here as an example from PEP to pyruvate. So with the ADP and ATP formation. So we have the so-called fermentation which occur along the process in cytosol when there is no oxygen. So it's called anaerobic respiration. So there's actually two general types of respiration. We have aerobic respiration, wherein that's the normal process of the cellular respiration, but without the presence of oxygen. Now the respiration process involves anaerobic respiration and it's called fermentation. So glycolysis is part of fermentation, wherein there can be two types in fermentation, the alcoholic and the lactic acid fermentation. In the alcohol fermentation, these occur in plants and fungi to make beer and wine. So in which glucose is converted to 2 pyruvate acid with the release of carbon dioxide and ethanol as the main product at the expense of 2 ATP and 2 NADH. The other type is the end product, of course, in alcohol fermentation is alcohol with the expense of 2 ATP, 2 carbon dioxide, and ethanol, 2 ethanol. And the second time is the lactic acid fermentation, and this happens in animals. That's why we have sometimes in humans we have pain in muscle when we do workout, because if we work out, the oxygen level is depleted, and that's why we feel pain, muscle pain. So the glucose here is converted to pyruvic acid with the expense again with 2 ATP and NADPH, and the product is 2 lactic acid. So the end product again is lactic acid, and this is also what happens in milk fermentation, wherein we have yogurts. So this is under lactic acid fermentation, and 2 ATP and 2 lactic acids. So the second phase is the brewing phase, which occurs when oxygen is present in aerobic. So the 2 pyruvate 3C molecules are then transported into the mitochondrial membrane to the matrix, converted to 2-acetyl coenzyme A with a 2 carbon molecules. And in the grooming phase, therefore, we have 2 NADH and 2 carbon dioxide and 2 acetyl coenzyme as the product. The third phase is the Krebs cycle, or the citric acid cycle. So remember that it's not the Calvin cycle. The Calvin cycle is the light independent phase of photosynthesis, while Krebs cycles is the third phase of respiration, also known as the citric acid cycle, which takes place in the mitochondrial matrix. So in here, The acetyl coenzyme A, which is a 2-carbon, bonds to oxaloacetic acid, which is a 4-carbon, to make citrate of 6-carbon. It takes 2 turns of the Krebs cycle to oxidize 1 glucose molecule. So in the Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle, since this is for instance a 1 turn of cycle, and take note that it takes 2 turns to oxidize a glucose. So therefore, to produce a 1 glucose, it needs 2 turns. So from this point, for example, the acetyl coenzyme is converted to citrate, and with a release of ADP and FADH. So again, the 2-acetyl coenzyme A, the second turn is converted to citrate 6-carbon with the release of 4 carbon dioxide, 6 NADH converted to NADH, and 2 ATP and 2 FADH. So the total net yield with the 2 turns of Krebs cycle are the 2 ATP, 6 NADH, and 2 FADH, and 4 carbon dioxide. So we are now on the last phase, which is the electron transport chain, or ETC, and oxidation phosphorylation, known as the chemiosmosis. It's in the inner mitochondrial membrane. So they use ETC, or the electron transport chain, in the cytochrome proteins and ATP synthase enzyme to make an ATP. So in the ETC, it pumps hydrogen protons across membrane, which lowers pH in the intermembrane space. And the hydrogen ions then move via the fusion proton motive force through ATP synthase to make ATP. And all NADH and FADH is converted to ATP during this stage of cellular respiration. Each NADH converts to 3 ATP, and FADH converts to ATP, which enters in the ETC at a lower level than an NADH. So this it's where the mitochondria, where ETC happens. So inside the intermembrane space, this is the proton pumping in the inner mitochondrial membrane, and where higher hydrogen ion concentration and lower hydrogen concentration for the production of the different ADP, H2, ATP. So again, in this process for NADH, and this for FADH2, wherein, as you can see here, we have on 3 levels of hydrogen, 1, 2, 3 hydrogen ions, but here we have only 2 levels from FADH to ADP and ATP, proton pumping. So the total ATP yield is 4 ATP, 34 ATP, and 38 ATP all in all. So the products of respiration is energy is 38 ATP. So in the eukaryotes, which have the membranes and we have the nucleus, the total ATP yield is about 36 all in all. So here are 38 ATP is different, but that's for the prokaryotes, and for the eukaryotes we have 36 in total. So the maximum ATP yield for cellular respiration in eukaryotes is shown on this figure, as you can see, from 2 ATP to an ADPH, so all in all 36 ATP. But for prokaryotes, we have 38 ATP all in all. So as you can see, on the difference between the two is somewhere along the in here, no? Kasi it's 6 here, but here is only 4 in the glycolysis stage. That is for eukaryotes and prokaryotes. So in addition to glucose, what other various food molecules are used in the cellular respiration? Of course, we have the catabolism of various molecules that includes carbohydrates, fats, and proteins for fuel or for use as energy. So carbohydrates using polysaccharides and fats, glycerols, and fatty acids, and proteins as amino acids. As you can see, the first organic molecules that being used by plants and all living things are actually carbohydrates in the form of polysaccharides. But when carbohydrates are depleted, then when you use the proteins, I mean fats. And when the fats are depleted, they use the proteins as amino acids. So that also explains how if you are dieting as a human being, so saka pa ma-burn yung iyong mga fats is that you need to consume less carbohydrates. So ma-burn yung mga stored fats sa body mo. And if wala ka ng fat sa body mo, then it will start that even your muscle will be depleted of energy, or source of energy use. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you have further questions, just post your question on the posted video. Thank you again, and see you on the next video, which is all about cell production.